Click. Ready and
action.
Alright. So thank you everyone for coming today to plan a lesson for our students. We are looking at planning a lesson on quadratics that is focused around the upside down teaching approach, but also infused with technology. So where should we begin?
How about we begin with quadratics?
Okay.
Well, I think with quadratics there's a lot of real-world applications that we can use, whether it be outside of school or on the computer with technology.
So do we want to start by having telling the kids the definition of a quadratic equation and having them copy that down into their notes?
No.
Okay.
I think we need to present the students with a problem.
Okay.
Where the mathematical idea or the formula or the numbers are taken out of the problem, or show them a video or a picture and kind of guide their discussion in the direction that we want them to go. It will give them the opportunity to explore, give answers, respond, and we might find out some background knowledge that they have that we wouldn't know that they already had.
Okay, so more like an inquiry-based approach to seeing what they know, and then opposed to me just kind of telling them what it is.
Definitely.
Okay. What kind of real world things? What could we do?
rockets.
Catapults.
Okay.
Pumpkin chunkin'.
What's pumpkin chunkin'?
It's an annual thing that they have in Delaware where people come from all over and they build these massive launching systems and they see how far a pumpkin can launch.
Okay, so then the kids, they'd have to predict where it would land?
Yes.
Okay.
And in order to predict where it would land, they would have to adjust the launch.
Okay. Okay.
What about Angry Birds? Isn't that what they do in Angry Birds? They do the thing and pull back and shoot.
And they have to predict where it's going to land.
Right. Because you can move forward on it to see how far you have to go. It even traces the line for you.
I'm sure a lot of the students have that app on their phone.
Definitely.
Hey, I just Googled something. And, can you see it? No, you can't see it. So maybe we'll insert it later. But okay, if we press play, we can see that you pull down, and sure enough, it launches. So what if, thinking about what you guys said, what if we just showed that to kids? What could we do with that?
I think if we're going to just show that, we need to have some questions ready. That way when the students start talking, we can direct them in the way they want to go, because I can see students now saying, oh, Ms. Gilson, guess what? I'm on this level. What level are you on? I did this or I did that. And we want kids to walk away learning the math rather than, oh, we played Angry Birds in math class today. So we want that math knowledge or the takeaway to be quadratics and how to adjust the equation to get what we want.
So you're looking at 2 or 3 guiding questions that you want groups to be able to answer. They could use Padlet for that.
Yeah.
Great website tool to put up, and all the groups can be sharing out their answers to those questions as they're working. So you don't have that mass chaos of kids calling out things at random. That can be in an organized fashion where kids can interact back and forth and not take time away from their game.
So Padlet, they can all type in a question and then it gets submitted?
Yeah, so what they'll do is as they're thinking of answers to the questions, as they're exploring either a video or the Angry Birds thing, then they'll basically be able to type in responses of what they notice about anything or things that they still wonder about or something like that.
And it gets pinned up on the screen so that everybody.
And you can actually move them around and group them.
Oh, okay.
Based on, if it's something they notice or something they still wonder about, so things like that. You can actually move the sticky notes and group them and stuff like that.
That way that all students would be getting involved and everyone would be heard, whether it's by their computer or a voice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
How is it different than just using your expressions in your classroom?
With the expressions, you're really limited on characters, on what you can type in. Also, you can't put multiple, you can't do the grouping that Mike was talking about. To be able to put up multiple answers up on the screen and then go back and manipulate those in a way that the kids could help to organize or group things if they started to see trends, you can't do that with the active expression.
Technically you can with WordSeed, but with this, you can save it and they can keep going back to it.
Yeah.
So it's an online tool that they can always log into with the website. So if you have Edline, you can post a link to Edline. And then they'll be able to keep revisiting that to review and stuff like
So
that.
throughout the unit, they would be able to go back to their Padlet
Right.
site, or
Mhm.
we as teachers could go back and
Say, hey,
say,
remember this.
hey,
Yep.
remember when we did this? Well, that would probably make a connection for the students throughout the unit.
Right. Well, and they're not going to know much about quadratics, say if we do this in Algebra 1 in the beginning, so they may just have guesses as to where something's going to land or how to make that prediction. But I was thinking maybe then at the end of the unit they could come back and maybe even either play the game and I don't know if you can enter the equation, but maybe you could do it like with other manipulatives out like in the hallway or something. Like I heard somebody at Falston was doing a ping pong catapult or something.
Yes, they did out in a cluster. They were launching ping pong balls with a catapult and trying to predict where it landed. And at some point, the teacher wanted them to hit a certain target, and they had to make adjustments. And I think based on their tries, they had several times to get it right. And then there was a winner, so it was kind of turned into a game and a competition. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, and really with the technology, you just want it to enhance the learning. Like if you want them to know quadratics, use the technology to facilitate the learning of quadratics. Okay.
So once the students pose these questions on Padlet, then I guess we would need to pick out the ones or the direction in which we wanted to go.
So maybe we should have those questions ahead of time in our lesson plan so that when the discussion comes up, like you said, they don't take us off in a tangent, which is where they like to do sometimes. So one of the important things when lesson planning would be to think about the questions ahead of time of what you want to ask, what kids might say, and what the next steps will then be to connect it with the lesson. What about assessments? How do I know that the kids got it other than like say that group project? How will it tie to like my quizzes and tests?
Are we going to have a follow-up with problems that the students are going to work on? Once we do this activity and they see Angry Birds, are they going to get equations, and are we going to talk about quadratics and how things change? Because I think they need to walk away knowing where the vertex is. Is it a minimum? Is it a maximum? What's the intercept?
Right, so there's still time for direct instruction in this process, like,
Yeah, that's the most important part, is nailing down exactly when they walk away what you want them to know.
okay, so beginning with the end in mind to
Mhm.
say, this is what I want them to know and be able to do.
How far do you want to get with this activity? Are they going to be fully into the equation by the time that we're done, or are they just going to be introduced to the fact that there is an equation that describes this motion that they all are familiar with?
Well, could you come back to it later on? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-day thing. Like, it could be your opening for the beginning,
Mhm.
but then teach them some stuff
Right.
and then have them come back.
I think a lot of the vocabulary they're going to know coming into this. When you talk about intercepts, they're going to be familiar. When you talk about a minimum or a maximum, whether it's just on a number line, a set of numbers, and you can relate that to an equation.
So I did find something online where they would have to enter the equation to launch the Angry Bird. So it looks like they get harder as you go through different levels. So like the first one starts, the path starts at the origin and then hits a maximum and then lands. So if they knew the 2 points in the vertex, then they could they could go from there.
Well, that would be interesting to have groups of students work on that, record their results, and then you could do a discussion. You could have chart paper around the room and each group host and see what happens with the different values that you enter.
Is there any way we could do that with technology? Like I'm thinking, like, cause they're gonna be experimenting on the computer. Is there anything where like it could record what was on there, what they were doing?
Yeah, they have screen readers,
Okay.
Screencast-O-Matic, Screener, and it can actually record, and they can record their voice into it.
Yeah, they can do voiceover while
Right.
clicking on the screen.
So, I mean, they could either do it if there's a built-in microphone, or if they have one of the headsets with the microphones built in.
'Cause when I first tried this, I kept putting in positive X values, and obviously that wasn't gonna work because it had to be a negative to make it a maximum. So I was wondering if capturing that discussion for the kids, and maybe not so that everybody has to listen to it, but for me as the teacher to start to understand how my kids think,
And
too,
I-
would be neat.
And for them to see the mistakes that are made, actually a visual representation rather than the teacher saying, well, if you do this, this is gonna happen, or
Right.
this is gonna happen. They actually are experiencing it that for themselves.
What about running a back channel while they're exploring?
Yeah, you could always run today's meet, which will allow them to type in questions and kind of, or any of their thought process as they go. The only thing with that is if you want to differentiate between what the student knows all at once, or if what they're talking about as a discussion goes behind the scenes as they're working. So it kind of depends on how you want to assess it. So if you want to assess what they know individually, or as small groups, the screencast would be great. But if you want to see how the whole class is progressing through understanding, then today's meet would be just as good.
And they can respond to each other?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, anyone can respond to it. So either the teacher can put it up and then go through, oh, I like this, and just kind of talk through the back channel, or the kids can just read through it and then answer each other's questions and respond to each other and things like that.
So if a group ran into that issue where they were putting in the wrong value and they couldn't get it to move, they might post that. And another group may be paying attention, and then they can reply to that right away.
Right.
And it saves you time from moving from group to group and helping every individual problem that's happening. The kids can essentially be helping each other while you're trying to move throughout the class.
I like the idea of the students helping each other.
Absolutely.
That's
So
how,
it really just depends on what your assessment piece is and what your outcome is, but either one would be,
When I think about
Good
the
idea.
standards of mathematical practice and trying to get kids to use content-specific vocabulary to be precise with their explanations.
the mathematical discourse,
Right.
defending answers, that goes along with the Common Core
And you
that
can
was-
set those expectations when you open up the
the
back channel that we want to be using as much appropriate vocabulary, however you want to frame that, but you can frame that initial discussion by introducing the channel that way.
Now, on the flip side, you could also have your student record, screencast their own thing, and have other groups critique it.
Have them rotate.
Right. So you could have them all
Me too.
post to Edline in a folder, and they can all log in, look at each other's folder, and then respond to it.
So one of my concerns as a teacher, and this being new, is how do I know kids are gonna not put inappropriate things up there?
You set expectations right from the start. If you do that, you set clear goals as to, this is the consequence if you're, goofing off this, that, and the other. I mean, this is a privilege. Technology is a part of what you have to do, and part of using technology is being able to use it responsibly.
And the back channels are not anonymous communication, they have to enter in
Exactly.
an identifier name, so you would
Okay.
know exactly
Yes.
who, if they posted something, you would know who it
Yeah,
would be.
there's
right off
nothing
the bat.
anonymous about it. If they put something up there, if
We
they
know where it
edit
came
something, you'll know exactly where it's from, yeah.
Okay.
well, that's a way to keep kids accountable as well. If we set an expectation, we expect you to go on and critique these others, then we know that they are actually doing that, so that would be good for assessment.
Alright, so I think we have a pretty good layout as far as putting out a video or a clip of Angry Birds, asking them what they notice and wonder, and recording that through maybe Padlet. And then depending upon, I guess, whether it's Algebra 1 or Algebra 2, and how much quadratics they know, how much teaching we're going to insert in there, but then at some point coming back to it either with a computer option or a project, where then they then have to apply the quadratics to accomplish a task. And as they're trying to figure out how to do that, increasing the communication by infusing technology. Anything else that we're missing?
There are problems in the book if you don't want to search the web or the internet for ideas. You can search the supplemental materials that come from the book. A lot of the texts come with Form C and D problems that they're often these good, rich problems to pose to students.
I think when we were talking earlier too, you made a good point that sometimes they scaffold them a little too much, and so you have to somewhat remove. I think it's like
Yes, a
remove
lot
some
of
of the
this.
steps from what the book.
A lot of times the problems will say let X equal, and you need to take that out because that really doesn't give the students a chance to think and
You don't want them to struggle with it, though you don't want it to be a step by step.
Right.
Yeah, you want them to think. And
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Was it productive struggle?
yes, productive struggle, and that's it.
Well, good. Well, I really appreciate your guys' help, and
You're very welcome.
Yes, you are.
Glad we could help anytime.
thanks.
No problem.
Cut!
I feel like I kept leaning